More than 1.3 million people from Asia visited Australia in just 1 year. But what if we told you that millions could soon be banned from ever stepping foot there again? In a shocking move that's sending ripples across the travel world, Australia is preparing to block visa access for citizens of 10 major Asian countries in 2025. Yes, you heard that right. No tourist visas, no student visas, and no work permits. Just a cold, hard no stamped on applications. But why? Is it about national security? Is Australia closing its doors to protect its economy? Or is something bigger going on behind the scenes? Some say it's a calculated political move. Others believe it could be the start of a global immigration shift. One thing's for sure, the reasons are deeper, more controversial, and more surprising than you think. Stay tuned, because this story is just getting started. Number 10. Myanmar. Coming in at number 10 is Myanmar, a country facing deep political unrest and humanitarian crises, and now it's facing Australia's tightening visa restrictions. For years, thousands of Myanmar nationals have sought refuge or better opportunities abroad due to the ongoing conflict between the military and pro-democracy groups. Australia has historically welcomed many of these individuals under humanitarian and student visas, but in 2025, that open-door policy is changing dramatically. Why the sudden shift? According to insiders, the Australian government is growing increasingly concerned about border control, identity verification, and the risk of undocumented migration tied to unstable regions. Myanmar, being in the midst of political turmoil, presents a complex case. There's a growing fear that visa applicants might overstay or apply under false pretenses, making enforcement difficult. The result? Stricter screening, longer wait times, and a dramatic drop in approvals. For many families separated by conflict, this change could mean years of waiting or even complete denial of reunification hopes. International students from Myanmar may also face additional barriers, from needing extra documentation to being deprioritized altogether in visa queues. But here's the bigger question. Is this about national security, or is it a sign that wealthier nations are closing their borders to those in need? Whatever side of the debate you fall on, one thing is clear. This policy shift will impact thousands of lives. From students chasing dreams to families seeking safety, the door is closing fast, and many are being left outside. What do you think? Does Australia have the right to protect its borders this way, or is this an unfair blow to people already facing unimaginable hardships? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if you're learning something new. Your support helps us keep uncovering global stories that matter. Number 9. Vietnam. Next on the list is Vietnam, a country with rapidly growing ties to Australia, especially through tourism, education, and labour exchange programs. In recent years, Vietnam has become one of the top sources of international students and temporary workers entering Australia. But behind that rising number lies a growing concern within Australian immigration authorities, a spike in undocumented labour and visa fraud cases tied to Vietnamese nationals. Reports from immigration analysts suggest that a significant number of Vietnamese visitors have been using short-term tourist or student visas as a gateway to low-wage work, particularly in agriculture and construction. These sectors, often difficult to monitor, have become hotspots for illegal employment, leaving the government scrambling to control overstays and unregulated labour. As a result, Vietnam is now being flagged under Australia's revised visa policy, which aims to prioritise highly skilled migrants and reduce potential exploitation in the shadow economy. This change isn't just about numbers, it reflects a broader shift in Australia's immigration philosophy, one that's becoming less forgiving toward visa misuse and more focused on long-term economic outcomes. While the move might seem strategic from a policy standpoint, it's also expected to hit thousands of ordinary Vietnamese applicants, many of whom are simply seeking better education, career paths, or family reunification. Educational institutions in Australia may also feel the ripple effects. With Vietnam being a key source of international students, tighter restrictions could lead to decreased enrolment, affecting both universities and the economy. Still, the government appears determined. By limiting visa approvals and tightening screening processes for Vietnamese nationals, Australia is sending a clear message: no more leniency for low, skilled migration pathways, even if it means disrupting long-standing regional partnerships. The once welcoming bridge between the two nations is narrowing, and fast. Number 8. Thailand. At number 8, we have Thailand, a country long celebrated for its strong tourism exchange with Australia. Each year, tens of thousands of Thai nationals travel to Australia, not only as tourists, but also as students, workers, and family members visiting relatives. But in 2025, Thailand is being added to the list of countries facing new and tougher visa restrictions, and the reasons may not be what you expect. Unlike some of the other nations on this list, Thailand's inclusion isn't driven by political unrest or high asylum claims. Instead, it's linked to an increasing trend of visa runs and short-term visits being extended or misused. Australian immigration officials have flagged a pattern where Thai visitors, especially those entering on tourist visas, remain in the country for purposes outside their original visa conditions, including unofficial employment in sectors like hospitality, caregiving, and even domestic work. While not always illegal on the surface, this kind of grey area activity makes enforcement difficult. It also places additional pressure on the Australian job market, especially in informal sectors where wage undercutting and exploitation are already major concerns. Additionally, Australia is moving toward a stricter skills-first immigration model. In this context, visitors from Thailand who lack formal qualifications or high-demand job skills are likely to be filtered out of the visa system altogether, even if they have a history of lawful visits or employment. Another factor at play is the growing reliance on agents and intermediaries in visa applications from Thailand, a trend that has, in some cases, led to fraudulent documentation and misrepresentation, further prompting authorities to apply blanket scrutiny to applicants from the region. In short, while Thailand and Australia have enjoyed a friendly travel relationships for years, this policy shift signals a dramatic cooling and a clear warning that past access does not guarantee future entry. Number 7, Sri Lanka. Taking the 7th spot on the list is Sri Lanka, a country grappling with economic instability, rising unemployment, and a growing wave of emigration. Over the past few years, Australia has seen a sharp increase in visa applications from Sri Lankan nationals, particularly through student, tourist, and humanitarian pathways. But starting in 2025, the door may not be as open as it once was. Sri Lanka is now among the 10 Asian countries facing tightened visa scrutiny under Australia's updated immigration policy. One of the main concerns cited by Australian authorities is the increasing number of asylum claims and visa overstays originating from Sri Lankan applicants. Many individuals arrive on tourist or student visas but later attempt to stay permanently, often citing economic hardship or political instability. While some of these claims are legitimate, officials say others are being used as loopholes to bypass standard immigration routes, putting additional pressure on Australia's already stretched visa system. Moreover, the Australian government is becoming more cautious about false documentation and fraudulent education agents, which have been linked to Sri Lankan applicants seeking student visas. As a result, legitimate students may now face longer processing times and tougher eligibility checks, even if they meet all academic requirements. The broader issue, however, is one of policy shift versus humanitarian responsibility. With Sri Lanka's economy still recovering from its worst crisis in decades, many families are desperate to send loved ones abroad for a better future. But under the new rules, even those with clean records and valid intentions could face rejection, not because of what they've done, but because of where they're from. In essence, Australia's approach is becoming more risk-averse and selective, and Sri Lanka is now caught in the crossfire of that changing immigration landscape. Number 6, Nepal. Coming in at number 6 is Nepal, a country known for its peaceful diplomacy, rich culture, and a steadily increasing migration rate to Australia. In recent years, Nepal has emerged as one of the fastest-growing sources of international students in Australia, with thousands enrolling in universities and vocational institutions. But despite this seemingly positive trend, Nepal is now being placed under heightened visa restrictions starting in 2025, a move that's left many confused and concerned. So why is Nepal on Australia's radar? The main reason lies in the misuse of student visas and low return compliance. A significant number of Nepali students who arrive in Australia for education fail to complete their courses or switch to low-skill work sectors, violating the terms of their visa. Others remain in the country after their visa expires, contributing to what officials call a silent overstay crisis. Australian immigration authorities have also noted a rise in fake documentation, misleading education agents, and sham enrolments involving Nepali applicants. In some cases, students are lured by promises of permanent residency or high-paying jobs, only to end up in exploitative work conditions or caught in legal grey zones. Another growing concern is that a portion of student visa holders are using the education pathway primarily as a backdoor to migration, rather than pursuing genuine academic goals. This shift undermines the integrity of Australia's education system and places additional burdens on its immigration infrastructure. While many Nepali students are hardworking, law-abiding, and truly focused on their studies, the government's new visa policy is applying blanket caution, making it harder for everyone, regardless of intent. In effect, Nepal has gone from being a rising star in Australia's student migration landscape to a high-risk country, flagged for stricter controls, reflecting a broader shift in how Australia evaluates immigration intent and long-term commitment. Number 5. Indonesia. At number 5 is Indonesia, one of Australia's closest neighbours and largest regional partners. With a population of over 270 million, Indonesia has long maintained a dynamic relationship with Australia through trade, education, tourism, and diplomacy. Yet despite this seemingly strong partnership, Indonesia is now being flagged for tighter visa restrictions in 2025, raising questions and tensions on both sides. The core issue? A growing number of Indonesian nationals are believed to be misusing short-term visas, particularly tourist and visitor visas, as a gateway to unofficial employment in Australia. Authorities have observed a pattern in which visitors enter legally, but soon shift into the informal job market, especially in sectors like cleaning, caregiving, construction, and agriculture, all of which are difficult to monitor and regulate. These actions may not always be criminal, but they blur legal lines and put both the individuals and their employers at risk. Compounding the problem is the increased reliance on third-party visa agents, some of whom have been linked to fraudulent applications and false documents, further eroding trust in the system. Australian immigration officials argue that these trends not only strain enforcement resources, but also undermine legitimate migration programs designed for skilled workers and international students. As a result, Indonesia, despite its close proximity and economic ties, is now subject to longer processing times, tougher background checks, and higher rejection rates for certain visa categories. Another driving factor behind this shift is Australia's move toward a more skills-focused immigration model, which deprioritizes low-skilled or informal labour migration, a route that many Indonesian applicants have historically relied on. In short, while Australia and Indonesia continue to maintain fragile, diplomatic ties, the immigration gate is closing more tightly. What was once an accessible and predictable process is becoming more uncertain, reflecting Australia's firm stance on controlling visa misuse and protecting its domestic workforce. Number 4. Bangladesh. Ranked at number 4 is Bangladesh, a country with a growing diaspora and a long history of migration to Australia, particularly through education and skilled worker programs. In recent years, Bangladeshi nationals have increasingly turned to Australia for better career opportunities, higher education, and a more stable future. However, that pathway is now facing major roadblocks, as Australia has included Bangladesh in its list of countries subject to stricter visa controls starting in 2025. One of the primary reasons behind this decision is the sharp rise in visa overstays and irregular migration patterns. Australian authorities have noted that a growing number of Bangladeshi visitors, particularly those entering on temporary or student visas, are not returning after their visa period ends. Instead, many are found to be working illegally or seeking ways to remain in the country permanently through unofficial or questionable means. There's also increasing concern about fake documentation, including falsified financial statements, academic records, and even forged language proficiency scores, often facilitated by unauthorised agents. These practices have not only overwhelmed Australia's visa verification system, but have also cast a shadow on genuine applicants who follow all the rules. Another factor is the influx of asylum applications from Bangladeshi nationals, many of which are perceived by officials as non-genuine or economically motivated rather than based on real threats of persecution. This has contributed to the country's inclusion on the visa restriction list as Australia seeks to tighten its humanitarian intake and focus on more controlled migration. While Bangladesh continues to produce talented students and professionals, the broader trend of visa misuse has forced Australian authorities to act. As a result, applicants from Bangladesh can now expect more intensive background checks, longer approval times, and a higher likelihood of rejection, even if their intentions are legitimate and their profiles are strong. Number 3. Pakistan. Landing at number 3 on the list is Pakistan, a country with deep cultural, educational, and family ties to Australia. Over the past 2 decades, tens of thousands of Pakistani students and skilled workers have migrated to Australia, contributing positively to industries like IT, engineering, and healthcare. However, in a surprising twist, Pakistan is now among the countries facing strict new visa restrictions in 2025, and the reasons are layered and complex. At the core of the decision is national security and documentation concerns. Australian immigration authorities have repeatedly flagged challenges in verifying documents submitted by Pakistani applicants, from academic transcripts and financial statements to background checks and identification records. These inconsistencies create significant delays in processing and raise red flags about the authenticity of applications, even when individuals meet other requirements. Adding to this are growing concerns about overstayed visas and non-compliance with visa conditions, particularly among those arriving on temporary tourist or student visas. While most Pakistani migrants follow the rules, a noticeable rise in visa violations, including unauthorized employment and failure to exit the country on time, has led Australia to reconsider its open-door policy. Another sensitive factor involves geopolitical tensions and regional security risks, which have made certain applicants subject to higher scrutiny. Though not officially stated, some analysts believe that Australia's move is also influenced by intelligence and defence priorities, especially when it comes to applicants from conflict-prone areas. This shift has real consequences. Families hoping to reunite, students aiming for world-class education, and professionals looking for career growth may now face extended wait times, more invasive checks, and increased visa denials. Even well-qualified individuals with clean records may find themselves entangled in a system that now views them with caution first and trust second, marking a dramatic change in how Australia approaches migration from Pakistan. Number 2, Philippines. At number 2 is the Philippines, a country with one of the most vibrant and growing migrant communities in Australia. From skilled nurses and caregivers to hospitality workers and international students, Filipinos have long been a valued part of the Australian workforce. In fact, the Filipino diaspora in Australia is one of the largest from Southeast Asia. So why is the Philippines now being hit with strict new visa restrictions in 2025? The answer lies in a combination of labour market shifts, policy reform, and immigration system abuse. Over the past several years, there has been a noticeable surge in Filipinos entering Australia on temporary visas, especially through caregiving programs and vocational education pathways, only to remain in the country beyond their allowed stay. While many work hard and contribute meaningfully, authorities argue that the system has been increasingly exploited through visa loopholes and overstays. There are also growing concerns over the rise of unlicensed recruitment agents who lure applicants with false promises of permanent residency or high-paying jobs. This has led to a rise in fraudulent documentation, misrepresented qualifications, and even sham marriages, further complicating the integrity of Australia's visa system. Additionally, the Australian government is shifting toward a high-skilled, high-income immigration model, deprioritising lower-wage sectors that traditionally attract Filipino workers. With automation and domestic labour programs on the rise, there's now less political and economic incentive to allow large numbers of low-skilled or semi-skilled migrants, even from countries with long-standing migration ties like the Philippines. This policy change could create major setbacks for Filipino families seeking to reunite, students planning to study abroad, and workers hoping for a better life. Even applicants with clean records and valid intentions are now subject to heavier scrutiny and a greater risk of rejection, signalling a sharp turn in Australia's once open relationship with the Philippines. Number 1, India. At the top of the list is India, a country that has long shared strong educational, economic, and cultural ties with Australia. Indian nationals make up one of the largest immigrant populations in Australia, with thousands arriving each year for university studies, skilled work, or family reunification. But despite these deep-rooted connections, India is now facing some of the toughest visa restrictions under Australia's 2025 immigration overhaul, a move that has stunned many. The primary concern driving this shift is the sharp rise in visa overstays, student visa misuse, and fraudulent applications. Australian authorities have flagged a significant number of Indian applicants who enter on student or tourist visas and then remain in the country illegally or attempt to change their visa status through questionable means. This includes enrolling in low-tier colleges, using education agents who submit false documents, or applying for protection visas on unfounded asylum claims. Another factor is the sheer volume of applications coming from India. With tens of thousands of new visa requests pouring in each year, the system has become overwhelmed, leading to longer processing times, increased scrutiny, and more rejections. Even genuine applicants are getting caught in the web of suspicion, facing extra hurdles and repeated documentation checks. The shift also ties into Australia's broader strategy to prioritise highly skilled migrants in critical sectors like tech, engineering, and healthcare. Unfortunately, many applicants from India, especially those applying through education and low-skilled work routes, are now considered lower priority, even if they previously met the criteria with ease. This change marks a significant turning point in Australia-India migration relations. From once being a favoured source country, India is now facing stricter screenings, tighter rules and greater uncertainty, all part of Australia's evolving approach to managing its borders in a rapidly changing global landscape. As we've just seen, Australia's upcoming visa restrictions in 2025 are not just administrative updates. They represent a major shift in how the country views immigration, border control, and international relationships. From India to Myanmar, the nations affected span a wide range of cultures, economies, and political contexts. Yet they all share one thing in common: a growing level of scrutiny and skepticism from Australian immigration authorities. Whether it's due to visa overstays, fraudulent documentation, misuse of student visas, or rising asylum claims, Australia is clearly sending a message. It will no longer tolerate loopholes or leniency in its visa system. This approach might make sense from a national security and economic standpoint, but it also raises tough questions about fairness, inclusion, and the human impact of such sweeping changes. For thousands of students, workers, and families, these restrictions could mean lost opportunities, broken dreams, and delayed futures. Even those with clean records and strong intentions may now find themselves stuck in longer processing queues, facing higher rejection rates, and dealing with the anxiety of an uncertain outcome. At its core, this isn't just about policy, it's about people. People who've saved for years to study abroad, who've left loved ones behind for work, or who've dreamed of building a life in a safer, more prosperous country. As 2025 approaches, it's clear that navigating Australia's visa system will require more planning, more transparency, and a greater understanding of the rules. For applicants from the listed countries, the message is loud and clear: the game has changed, and only those who play by the new rules will stand a chance. Australis. It may be closing some doors, but it's also reshaping the key.